Hello and welcome to Badass Moms, brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. I'm Nicole Cruz, super busy mommy coach. Today, I am super excited to have Jennifer Maurer on the show, and we're going to be talking about, we came up with a jazzy title for this one, Pain to Power, a practical roadmap from rock bottom to creating the life you desire. And I've had conversations with Jennifer before, and I just have a feeling this is going to be epic. Before we jump in, a couple of things that I have going on. First of all, Jennifer and I are working with a group of people on to the best of our knowledge, the first ever single parent handbook. We're working with single parents and experts in various areas who are single parents. And we're going to be working on this over the next year or so. We've got a Facebook group I'd love to invite you all into called Land of the Lone Parent. And we're focused on practical solutions, like you ever look for advice and it's like, yeah, you're a single parent. That's inspirational. And it's like, okay, awesome. So how do I deal with this problem? You rock. Okay, so how do I actually fix this? You're amazing. And you're like, oh, okay, you can do whatever you want. That's not helpful. So we're going to really dig into practical solutions, and I'm excited to work with Jennifer and this group on it. And I'm also excited to kick off my first ever mentorship program, which is a way that I will be able to give one-on-one guidance to, some of those parents who are really at that rock bottom place where they can't invest very much in, mentorship and resources and coaching. And so my mentorship program is really made to cater to those people at a price point that should be manageable. So anyway, I am really excited to introduce you to Jennifer Maurer. Jennifer is an established certified life coach and author of 5 Steps to Freedom from Fear, a simple guide to removing the obstacles that prevent us from realizing our fullest potential. As a divorced mother of 2, Jennifer has been there and back and now wants to help others of all ages and genders to realize that when life throws you a curveball, it's time to take your best swing. Jennifer, welcome to Badass Moms. I am so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm just as excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, I just love our conversations. I feel like there's a chance this could turn into like an 8-hour podcast.
It could. You might be editing a lot or spreading it out over a long period of time, either one. For sure.
Separated into like 18 mini episodes.
We've got our own season.
There you go. There's just so much synergy. We have a lot in common. So people who have listened to the show before, there's a good chance they know a bit about my story, but they don't know yours. So can you tell them a little bit about how your journey brought you to the work that you do?
Absolutely. And it started off kind of, I hate to say by accident, because I think there's intention to everything, but things do happen in life, curveballs. I reference curveballs. I reference the word Phoenix a lot. I was in a place in my life where everything was one way one day. And within a very short period of time, everything was just completely different. And so it started with, my husband and I separating, him moving to a different state. My daughter was getting ready to move away to college. My mother had passed away, who was, really a strong source of strength for me. And my son was just entering high school. So all of these changes were happening within our family within a few short months. And so, what I once knew to be true, married, couple of kids, living at home, mom's, okay. Everything's good. And then the next minute, boom. So, some of these life transitions I was prepared for, like my daughter going to school, my mother had been somewhat ill, but you're never prepared to lose someone that you love that much. And then just the breakdown of my marriage, which, I had seen coming for a while. We both did. So that wasn't highly, unlikely that was going to happen. But like I said, it all happened in a short period. So I kind of found myself in a place where I was in unfamiliar territory for the first time in 20 years. I was now having to revisit who I was as an individual, who I could be as a parent to my 2 children, kind of co-parenting them, but from different states. So in a sense, I was really kind of it, helping my daughter adjust to her freshman year in college, coping with my mother's death. So there was a lot of apprehension. There was a lot of adjustment that needed to be made. And I was really mindful about how I was doing things because, your kids are watching, even though my kids were older, they're looking to you to kind of see how to kind of cope with these life challenges and changes. So I became very aware of that. And I realized very quickly that I had to make some decisions that were going to be productive. I didn't want to. I'm not going to lie. Like I wanted to curl up in a ball and just stay in bed for 3 months. I mean, that's how you feel when this stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
And I did allow myself every day a certain period to kind of mourn. But then I did realize that, okay, I need to do this. So not having been in the workforce for many years, I went to work. I landed a great job at a university where I was able to coach students on what programs might be best for them going forward. And so that really kind of really inspired me. It allowed me to hone my listening skills, my people skills. I fell in love with what I was doing, decided to become a life coach, then became a certified life coach, and then began just writing down things that were helping me that I knew could help other people that might be going through the same thing I was. And so that led me to 5 Steps to Freedom from Fear. And then eventually a book, or I should say a course for divorced women called Girl, You've Got This, because I just needed to hear that, girl, you've got this. About 50 times a day, I needed to hear that. And that's really sometimes what people need to hear. Let's start off with, you've got this. Now let's talk about how. So that led me to the course, which led to some public speaking, which led to some podcasts. And then finally, here I sit with you. So kind of a long story, but I tried to abbreviate it as much as I could. That's how I got here.
Yeah, I know that was a great explanation. And it's one of the most horrible experiences a person can go through, and it's also so common. You know, my story has a lot of overlap. In 2016, my husband left me 2 months after I lost my brother, my only sibling, and then there's
Wow.
transition of becoming a single parent. But I mean, there's, even if you're not a parent, there's the transition of all of a sudden you need to get all of your ducks in a row as far as your finances, your living situation. If you are a parent, then it adds an extra layer of complexity with co-parenting, with just child care, schools. There could be moves, with having to be there for your child who is adjusting or reacting in a certain way. Thankfully, mine was 18 months old and really didn't have any clue what was going on. And,
Mhm. Yeah.
to this day is just like, oh, we have one big happy family and two
Right.
houses. Yay.
Thank God. Thank God.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank God. I'm like, that's awesome. um, but it's one of the most horrible experiences. Often marriages and long-term relationships end, too often they end because of, and now I'm talking generally. I don't I'm not talking about my co-parent for anyone who's listening. But too often they end with betrayal. They end with, there's a lot of times they end because of various types of abuse, from physical abuse to mental and emotional abuse to financial abuse. And so, on top of the fact, any breakup is hard. I mean, like, ask a high schooler, right? I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
they react the way all of us react inside, but, are like, I can't really do that on the outside anymore. So, you know,
So
breakup
true.
yeah, breakups are, they're always difficult, but then you add on all of these layers of complexity, and it turns into this situation that is just, the magnitude of it is difficult to wrap your head around, until you've been through it or been through something similar. And unfortunately, I know way too many women where this challenge was compounded by a deep loss, like the one you described, like what happened to me. And so there's really a need for conversations around, how do you go from this rock bottom place to a place where you're thriving and creating a life you love. And personally, and I know you agree with me on this point, I refuse to believe that the answer is you just cry yourself to sleep every night until you find a husband.
Yeah, but don't even go there. Just the hair on the back of my neck stood up when you said that. Just by you saying that.
And like, thankfully there's change around this, but that's sort of the popular narrative, right? As soon, don't worry, you'll find someone else. And it's like, so that's the only answer to this. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like,
yeah, we're not men bashing. We love men.
No.
It's got nothing to do with that.
No, nothing at all. It's like, I want to find somebody. I will,
Sure.
when I find someone, I will cherish them. I want to get married again. I am a total cheesy romantic, like give me a Prince Charming kind of story and I will be happy. But until that happens, I'm supposed to just be miserable,
Yeah, not even.
Exactly.
And that was something, the thing with me, I was very independent. I didn't get married until I was 32. So I had my whole 20 and kind of purposely, I wasn't really looking for a long-term relationship or anything like that. I was really happy by myself. I'm very blessed that I lived my 20s as an independent woman. I had a career. I worked really hard in my career. I wasn't a big party girl. I'd go out maybe every Saturday night with my friend. We'd go dancing or something, but I traveled when I wanted. I bought what clothes I wanted when I wanted. I lived a life that I felt was very independent and comfortable for myself, and never, if I was dating somebody, great, but if I wasn't looking for someone to date. If someone came along, great. And so I really enjoyed my 20s. I would go to the movie theater. If there was a movie I really wanted to see, I would go and see it by myself. I was very comfortable with my own company. I would go out to dinner by myself and have a nice steak. I just always kind of savored that alone time that I had. And then when I got married and had kids, then of course, you're never alone. You are never, with a husband and 2 kids, you are never alone, which of course I loved at that point, because I was at that stage where I'm like, okay, it's time for this now. And so I never looked back and felt like I was missing something, or I didn't do something I wanted to do. So I spent a good part of my 30s and 40s raising my kids, savoring every single moment of it. But then when I went back to being by myself again, and I wasn't really by myself, I had my kids, of course, but I did have to kind of rediscover some of those things that that I was comfortable with when I was single, and start, kind of getting back into that groove again, and kind of merging my single life with my non-married but with kids life. And so that was a whole adjustment too. But certainly never feeling like, oh, there had to be that guy there in order. And I kind of credit my background in my 20s having come to that peaceful place where I never felt like a man was necessary to complete the picture. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. And, it's, that makes life a little scarier, I think, when you feel and you place that emphasis on the need to have that other half, or that better half, or that, whatever we call it. It puts a lot more pressure on you. The message I'm trying to get out to women of any circumstance is, you are the best friend you'll ever have. You're the biggest asset you'll ever encounter in life. And you're capable of so much more than you think you're capable of. And when you're put to the test, I mean, Eleanor Roosevelt said, a woman's like a tea bag. You really find out how much heat she can take when you put her in hot water. That's when you find out really what's going on. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate these things happen, but they will also show you, remarkably so, that you are capable of so much more than you think. So that's kind of the basis for my message.
I love that, and that resonates with me so much, because I feel like I never like to have that, oh, there's a silver lining to everything. Like, no, some things just suck.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not going to pretend that they don't.
Right, it's true.
No matter what happens, there's an opportunity in every situation. Right. I'm not saying to look back and be like, oh, I'm so glad that happened, but there's always an opportunity in every situation. And when you're going through it, you can choose to either take all of the opportunities that are presented in that situation, or you can still go through the crappiness without taking any of those opportunities. So which one are you going to choose? Right.
Yeah.
And so, for me, there's nothing anyone could ever say to make me feel like it's okay that my brother died at such a young age. Like,
That'll
no,
never be okay.
never. The
No.
But that happened. There's no, like, I couldn't choose for it not to happen. So given that it happened, the
Mhm.
opportunity that came from that was for immense growth.
Yeah,
I had
absolutely.
to lean into every practice I had ever learned, which I'm
Totally.
happy to get into the specifics in this episode because that's what it's about, right? The practical
Mhm.
steps. I had to lean into all of that. And there are certain things you just can't really get to the next level until you have the situation, right? It's like you can practice shooting the basketball as many times as you want. You're never going to get good at basketball until you are able to play a game.
Got to get in the game.
Exactly. You need, like, in order, like, you can't get better at rock climbing if you stay with that, like, cute little wall in the playground as opposed to going to like a more challenging like cliff to climb. It's like you just can't. There are certain things you can't do until you actually get to experience the challenge. And so that was that like situation, that that rock bottom type of situation, and then followed by my marriage ending and all the stuff that came with that. That was the rock bottom situation that gave me the opportunity. I didn't want the opportunity. I would gladly give back the opportunity, but gave me the opportunity to practice and get good at all of these tools I had picked up over the years, and then get to the point where I was good enough at them where, after that, when crises would hit, it was sort of like, oh, okay, here's what we're gonna do now, and we're good. Everyone good? I'm good.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
it's a weird place
exactly.
to be. It's a weird place to be, and it sounds fake. And there are those people who try to talk themselves into it, like, I'm in a positive place all the time.
Oh God.
And like but to like, there's a place where you can actually feel that, where it can be
Yeah.
genuine, where you can like be grounded and centered and at peace most of the time. and and that's what I think we all want to get to.
I agree. And I think it's climbing a ladder is what it is. It's unrealistic. And we do this to ourselves. We place unrealistic expectations on ourselves based on what we see on social media or what people might say or write in a book. At the end of the day, adversity is adversity. Everybody faces it at some time or another. And it's a tough one. It is really a tough one because there's so much to process and there's so much we want to do to overcome it. But like you said, without actual tools. And I think the first mistake people make is they do try to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Mm.
You're not going to convert from total rock bottom to, oh, I'm better and I can be positive every day overnight. And so what I always tell people is if you can't feel good about something and you can't even feel half good about something, feel a quarter good about something. And what that means is just go to the next best thought. Don't go from everything's crappy to everything's perfect. Go from everything's crappy to, well, I do have this going for me. I do have that, taking account in a couple of the things that are going well, even if it's just one or two things that went well that day. Hang on to that. Just go to the next better feeling thought. You're not going to graduate. You're just kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. Your mind knows when it's lying to itself. It just creates more chaos.
Yeah.
So when you start climbing that ladder, and then when you get to that point, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better. Now what thought can I have that's going to put me to that next feeling better thought? And just gradually over time, that might be in the course of an hour, a day, a week, or a month, but just let yourself be okay with being happy with the smallest things in the beginning, and then let that gradually build and build and build to where it does become more, I should say, realistic, something that you're doing, you believe, because if you don't believe it, nobody's able to get better if they don't believe themselves what they're telling themselves. It's just that simple.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because there are all these trends around affirmations. Is that still a trend?
It is. And I believe in them to a degree. They can make me momentarily feel better, but I'm go on with what you're
right or
saying.
the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and you just hit the nail on the head. Like, if if you feel like your life sucks at the moment, looking in the mirror at yourself and saying, I love my life. I love my life is like, it's not going to do anything. It'll make you feel worse.
I was just going to say, it makes it worse.
Yeah. As soon as you say it, the little voice in the back of your head says, no, you effing don't.
It says BS.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that just makes it worse. And like resisting how you feel makes it worse. And so there's this like fine line, and it can be difficult to describe, but look for it in yourself, right? There's a fine line between desiring to move towards a different feeling versus resisting where you're at, you know? And so if you're resisting grief, if you're resisting anxiety, if you're resisting depression, any of those difficult emotions, if you're just like, I need to get away from them, I can't, you know, that's actually going to make it worse because you're putting energy towards resisting it. Whereas if you can get to the place, sort of like what you described, where you can be like, I'm grieving. I feel heavy grief right now. I'm courageous enough to allow myself to relax into the grief. Relaxing into it's important. I'll get to that later, but I'm gonna relax into the grief, and I'm gonna allow myself to completely feel this grief. And okay, now I'm aware of what's going on. Now I'm gonna zoom out because the grief isn't all there is in this moment. And that's what you're saying. It's very different than resisting and trying to make the grief go away and trying to be happy instead of grieving. It's more like zooming out, like there's grief. Okay, let me not get sucked down that rabbit hole. Let me zoom out. There's grief. There's also, it's warm outside. There's also, my child is doing something that is amazing. And you don't have to be like, oh my God, so now I'm happy now. I'm so grateful for my child. I'm not even great. No, you can be like, I'm totally grieving. And my child just did this absolutely endearing thing. I'm totally grieving and I'm in this heavy place. And those birds are beautiful. And so you can zoom out and see more of the picture. And the more you practice that, the more you genuinely, without forcing it, start to move from that low place into that better place. And you'll get the waves that keep coming back, and you allow the wave to come, just like by the ocean. You allow the wave to come, wash over you, and then it goes back out again. And there's still the rest of everything around you in the world, you know, from that zoomed out perspective.
That's
so
it.
I brought that up.
That's a great analogy. For myself, I use a pie chart. I'm a charts and graphs type of person. I'm a very visual person. I have a pie chart where, in that same scenario you're talking about, just to keep the playing field even here, you have a pie chart where grief is maybe purple and it takes up 3/4 of the pie chart. And that zooming out that you refer to is where you fill in the rest of the pie chart with something as simple as, what can I make for dinner tonight that's going to be good? Oh gosh, it was over 70 degrees today. Wow, that's a little sliver of the pie chart. I'm looking forward to this weekend when I get to have a glass of wine with my best friend. You know, that's another slice of the pie chart. You don't not acknowledge that 75% of that pie chart is purple. Okay, but you're looking now at the other colors in the pie chart. And as you go through this practice, like you said, the purple in the pie chart starts to get smaller and smaller as you fill it with things that are different colored. And those different colors might be an activity or a notion or a thought or a prayer or whatever you do to go to that better feeling place, kind of helps to fill in that pie chart. So always be mindful of your pie chart and use it wisely.
I like the pie chart. I'm stealing that from you.
You can totally steal it.
What a great visual. Yeah. And like, as far as thoughts, what you were saying, like, you can't necessarily go from, you know, I'm at rock bottom to I love my life.
Anybody that can do that, I want the recipe. You'll make $1 million. Tell us how to do it. It's just, it's not possible.
And even like, you know, there are people who, you know, claim to be and show evidence of being enlightened, who will tell you they still feel all of these ranges of emotions. They just are also at peace because they're zoomed out, right? But for me, the thought was, at this rock bottom time in my life, the thought was, that realistic thought was, this is gonna suck and then it'll be over.
Yep.
And that's it. That's so, like, you know what? This is gonna suck for a
There's
while.
relief, there's relief in
Later.
just saying that statement, you know, acknowledging. What's the first thing they have you do in Alcoholics? Hello, I'm Jennifer Maurer and I'm an alcoholic, right?
Mhm.
Like it's the first thing is acceptance, acknowledgement, and then relax into that. Like you said, you know, if you don't accept it, or if you pretend it's not there, or even the severity of it. And believe me, that's the tough part, you know, settling in and letting yourself feel all that. That's what most people are running away from. That's, I mean, I've done it at times. That's
Mhm.
the most, you know, it's easy for us to sit here and say, oh, you know, settle in and accept it and acknowledge it and live it and feel it. But you and I both know it's tough. That's, you're getting in touch with stuff that's not pleasant, stuff that most people would run away from. But the difference from those people that move on successfully, instead of carrying that baggage with them, and the next time something does come up that's going to require that, you'll be really happy that you put in that time. But it is a sit down and come to Jesus, you know, for lack of better expression. Like you're coming to terms with some stuff that is really tough to deal with. And so, you know, but it's so necessary, because without that, it does, like you said, it become, you file it away. It doesn't become fully dealt with. We find different ways to cover it up, but it's still there underneath the surface. And it has a lot bigger effect on our thought patterns and our physical, as you know, on our physical well-being. All of these things impact us physically, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, in every way possible. So super important that you mentioned that you have to really deal with it.
Yeah, 100%. And first of all, when something like that hits and it is sort of, you know, resisted, suppressed down, that's where trauma comes.
Mhm.
You know, and I'm not saying that I I'm capable of just like anything happen and not doing it, right? It's a reflex. It's a human reflex to react that way. Um, but trauma isn't a situation. Trauma is our reaction to the situation.